In our effort to bring great diversity to the types of presentations we have this morning, I think we have a real treat for the forum because based upon our experience with this last year, very interesting kind of presentations we're about to undertake. And that is what we call the lightning round. We have 4 people who will make very brief, cogent comments, timed arrests, and their focus will be on harnessing disruptive technologies for agricultural gains. The first speaker is Ann May Chang. Can mobile innovation make a difference? She is the Chief Innovation Officer for Mercy Corps. Please welcome Ms. Chang.
So here in the US, we've all experienced the mobile revolution firsthand. There's very little about our lives that hasn't been transformed, whether it's how we collaborate at work, how we communicate with our loved ones, or even now how we hail a cab. And if we look around the world, we're at the precipice right now of having more mobile subscriptions than the total number of people in the population. So mobile has vastly proliferated. Of course, this is tempered by the fact that many of us have more than one mobile connection, so it's really about two-thirds of the world's population actually has a mobile phone today. And so, of course, the obvious answer is, how can this revolutionary new technology be applied to some of the biggest challenges in the world, in the developing world, including around food security? And there's many obvious benefits throughout the agriculture production cycle. So, we've heard about some of these already today. We look at mobile information services that can help farmers get access to market prices, weather information, better agricultural practices. We have mobile savings and loan programs that can allow farmers to better manage their cash flow. And we have mobile payment services, which can help farmers better manage their payments more efficiently, as well as be able to avoid a lot of the risks of carrying large amounts of cash. And there's also mobile microinsurance services that allow farmers to manage the devastating effects of drought and natural disaster. And what we've seen, the good news is that we've actually heard about many of these types of mobile solutions already today, and that we're seeing pilots of many, many of these services already in multiple countries around the world, including through Mercy Corps' AgriFin program. But it's not all quite that easy. The mobile health movement has been a few steps ahead of agriculture. And what we've learned in mobile health, I think, is quite instructive. And one thing we learned is that if you look at this map of Uganda, these red dots all represent mobile health pilots around Uganda. There's like dozens of them. And each of these, as you notice, is in a very small, isolated geography, usually also targeted at a very narrow set of health issues, and done by different donors, different implementing partners, and so forth, resulting in what ended up happening in Uganda was that the Ministry of Health actually called uncle. They said, you guys are swamping the mobile health system locally with all of these pilots we just can't handle. And they actually called a moratorium and said, no more mobile health projects in Uganda. We certainly don't want that to happen in the agriculture space. And I think one of the things we need to be cautious of is that there's a lot of incentives, both for donors as well as for implementing partners, to chase after the new sexy thing and reinvent the wheel and do another new fancy app, rather than investing in the systems and platforms that can really enable scale. So what I'd say is mobile has a lot of potential, but it's not a panacea. Implementing a great mobile solution involves a lot of challenges on the ground. We need to make sure we're actually addressing a real need that farmers themselves perceive. We need to think about access issues, such as, is there mobile coverage? In rural Africa, it's estimated that only 50% of rural Africa actually has a signal. Affordability is a huge issue when it comes to data services, which can be quite expensive. Text-based systems such as SMS are not very useful if farmers aren't literate. Digital literacy is also an issue because just being able to navigate these complicated apps on these feature phones can be really unwieldy. So we need to think about usability. We need to think about how do you spread awareness about all of these different apps and services when you're talking about farmers in far-reaching rural areas. And how do we maintain these applications? So we also need to think about how this affects women, because women really can be put at a disadvantage when it comes to mobile. Women are 21% less likely to own a mobile phone and 23% less likely to have access to the internet. And women have been, studies have shown that women actually prefer to get their information in person or by voice. So what are the solutions? How do we make this work? So I'll just end by giving 3 examples of effective interventions that have been effective using mobile phones. So one is Grameen Foundation has really done a great job leveraging intermediaries through their community health knowledge workers program, where they've trained 1,000 community knowledge workers, equipped them with mobile phones, and they've gone out and been able to serve over 200,000 farmers in rural Uganda. We also can think about using more use of voice and IVR. In Bangladesh, the Mobile Mama program has actually found that by giving women access to mobile phones and giving them information via voice, they've been able to, women are much more receptive to that. It gets around literacy issues and so forth. And Mobile Mama has also been a resource to many other organizations that are trying to do work in this space by aggregating the best practices and distributing the best recommendations. And finally, capacity building is really important. That, at Mercy Corps with our AgriFin program in Indonesia, what we did was train groups of women farmers to teach them how to use mobile solutions and mobile applications. And this not only helped them become more comfortable with using the technology, but also help build the networks as well as communities to help support them. So absolutely, I think that mobile technology has a lot of promise in helping addressing the needs around food security, and we also really need to be judicious in how we apply it. Thank you.
And May Chang, thank you very much. Our next lightning round speaker is Mark Kahn, founding partner, Omnivore Partners. His topic will be venture capital investing to spur innovations in small-scale agriculture. Please welcome Mark Kahn.
Hi, everyone. Today we're talking about venture capital in India, and I've only got a few minutes to piss you off and make you think. All right, so why are we talking about India? India is in the middle of a startup revolution related to food and agriculture. Why? Well, I thought it was there, it's there. There's a demand story, a supply story, and an ecosystem story. The demand story is the same thing going on across the developing world. As India gets richer, it eats differently. So 1.2 billion people are eating more protein, they're eating more fruits and vegetables, they're consuming much more dairy, and all the bad stuff that comes with development, the edible oil, the sugar, and the processed foods, right? Same thing's true in Nigeria, same thing's true in Indonesia. Nothing remarkable about that except the size. Supply. India is uniquely screwed with respect to agriculture. And what do I mean by that? I mean everything we could possibly want more of, we have less of. You want more land? Tough, we're urbanizing. You want more water? Our water table's in free fall. You want more soil? Well, Punjab is basically dead ground because of 50 years of monoculture. You want more labor? It'll surprise everyone here, but rural labor in India is vanishing at an astonishing rate, and the price of rural labor has quintupled in the past 15 years. Basically, is the same story played out in the American South in the 20s and 30s. People are saying, I'm moving to Chicago for a construction job. In this case, it's not Chicago, it's Bangalore or Delhi. And finally, you want a supply chain, and ours is broken, whether it's grain logistics or cold chain. So we have this amazing demand story on one hand, we have this amazing supply story on the other, and essentially we're either going to innovate or starve to death. Or we could do what the Chinese do and buy large global grain companies, except 45% of our electorate is farmers, so that's not going to happen. So innovation is the only way Indian food security is going to be preserved. So we have a massive challenge. We also have entrepreneurs rising to meet the challenge. And why do we have entrepreneurs rising to meet it? Because we have something in India that most of the developing world doesn't have. And that is the world's largest IT companies, some of the world's largest pharma companies, some of the world's largest auto companies, right? We have some of the world's largest biotech companies. Our agribusiness companies in India, right? Mahindra isn't just India's largest tractor manufacturer, it's the world's by volume because it dominates small tractors in the US. We have Chang Irrigation, which is now almost bigger than the Israelis, right? We have United Phosphorus, which is top 10 in global agrochem. And what does this mean? We have a huge amount of talent that's coming out of these companies and that is starting their own, that are starting food tech startups, ag tech startups, and we have tremendous research universities, and despite the fact that the government pisses away money like it's going out of style, some of those researchers in the public sector are doing pretty good work. So we have all of these wonderful advantages, and what does it mean? India is the laboratory for small-scale agriculture, or as I infuriated a government minister of a foreign country a few weeks ago saying, the answers to Kano run through Kanpur. Some people will get that joke. India has every single agroclimatic zone that the world, represented in the world, and the solutions that we are capable of developing because, again, it is a system entirely comprising small-scale agriculture. Our average farm size is 1.4 hectares, right? The largest farm I've ever seen, and I've lived there the last 8 years, ran an agribusiness company for 5 years. The largest farm I've ever seen is 200 hectares, right? The smallest I've seen is, a quarter of an acre. So there is no such thing as large-scale agriculture in India, so everything we develop there is for small farmers. And finally, we have, because of the nature of our industries, tremendous advantages in frugal engineering, small-scale mechanization, and lean IT. We've got the ag side of the story, we've got the tech side of the story. This is where it's happening. And we're seeing it in the kinds of companies that are coming out right now, in spaces like farm mechanization, sustainable inputs, information services, precision ag, supply chain tech, innovative food products. It's a nice sign. I would have preferred a hook. I'll just give you 2 examples of this. These are both companies that Omnivore, my venture fund, is invested in. SkyMet is India's climate corporation. It is the largest provider of private weather forecasts in India. It's also become, in the past few years, the backbone of ag insurance in India. We have more weather stations than the government has, and ours aren't down half the time. We have enabled the radical growth of ag insurance because we put the infrastructure down that lets the claims get settled, that means that more farmers can get insured. Right? Barracks is the agrochemical industry's worst nightmare. This is the largest pheromone trap manufacturer in India. This is letting farmers slash their sprays from 8 to 4. This is making sure that Indian farmers that are exporting fresh produce are within the residue limits. These are, and one company was founded by a former journalist and a bunch of IT guys, and this company was founded by a person from the pharmaceutical industry. So you're seeing the talent, you're seeing the startups. Please take a look at what we're doing here. We're from Omnivore. We're India's leading venture fund in agriculture and food. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mark. Our next lightning round speaker is Nick Moon. He is the founding director of KickStart International, and his topic is transferring smallholder irrigation technology in Africa. 1 million micros make a macro. Please welcome Nick Moon.
Hi, so going to be quick here. Millions of smallholder farmers in Africa. If we can help them, they make a huge difference together. KickStart, my company, is best known for a hardware product, a moneymaker pump. It's a treadle-operated pump that helps them to adapt to climate change, improve their food security and income security by growing more food more often and more nutritious food. The context in which this takes place, I think everybody knows this story. Most of the poor people in the world are farmers, they're smallholder farmers. And in Africa, they're almost all of them dependent on rain-fed farming, and we want to shift them across to irrigated agriculture. In fact, the subtitle for my talk really is to irrigate Africa and how. Why? Well, these guys, they grow subsistence crops. They can only grow them 1 or possibly 2 seasons a year, depending on where the rain is. And a lot of it goes to waste as a result. So That's a problem. 96% of smallholder agriculture is rain-fed in Africa, whereas if you can irrigate, you can grow high-value crops, you can grow them pretty much the whole year round, and you can take advantage of the prices that you're able to obtain in the marketplace as a result and increase your income by huge factors. But yet there are only 4% of smallholders who are doing this thus far. We have a hardware technology, we call it the money maker. That is the value proposition that we take to people. Use this and make money. This big one, we have two, there's a big one and a small one. The big one can irrigate up to 2 acres. It's extremely efficient. It's a pressure pump. You suck water out of the ground with it, and then you can pressure it up the side of the hill or into a water tank to distribute by gravity through an irrigation system if you want. $160 is the package. That means you're irrigating an acre for $80. Smaller one does pretty much the same job, but it's much, much cheaper, much, much lighter. Felix and Lucy have used one in the first 3 months of their adaptation of this thing. They made $1,000. Last season, over a 3-month period, they made $6,000 from growing tomatoes and French beans for the export market. So that's the reason that we're doing all this. We want to move people's income really from $150 average per year from their farming income per household to something closer to $1,000. But it's not easy. We take a market-based approach. It's basically the business chain of ensure supply and create demand. So human-centered design leads ultimately to the mass production of this technology in China in this case. We then push it out through a whole network of distributors and retailers. And we spend a lot of time, a lot of money doing the education and promotion and the marketing and the sales in order to really convince people that this is something that they can and should use to add value to their existing skills and assets. We measure and track the impacts, and that feeds back into our chain, as you can see. So the notion here is that it's efficient and it's scalable and it's a sustainable market delivery solution. But it's tough because smallholder farmers are very risk-averse. They're very poor, they're far off the road, they're difficult to reach with messages and products. And we're proposing to sell them a big-ticket item. It's a big capital good that we want them to invest in. And that's a mindset change for them. We have to help them shift their attitude away from, let's say, risk minimization and food security to more business and income security. That's what we're a hybrid organization, incidentally. We work through the market, but we do also use donor funds, and we use them largely for the sort of promotion and development in the marketplace. We've got branded stores, we've got commissioned staff, we've got radio and mobile promotions, billboards, and farm demos. All of these things are absolutely necessary in order to really get through with the message that this is something that is worth investing in. We work too with distributors, NGOs, governments, and businesses. This is where we work. The countries in blue is where we have programs on the ground. The countries in green is where we work with partners. What have we been able to achieve? Well, nearly 250,000 pumps sold thus far, and we're 99.9% certain that that led to 160,000 at least profitable small businesses happening right now, which is equivalent to about 800,000 people out of poverty, and they are collectively generating $130 million a year in new profits and wages. And they are feeding or producing enough food to feed 8-10 million people with fruits and vegetables. We're currently selling about 2,000 of those pumps a month. But this is the macro, what I wanted to talk about here, the potential impacts of smallholder irrigation in Africa, which is so, so vital. Here are the climate zones. Wherever it's greener, it's probably more fertile. This is where the seasonal rains hit. And this is where the poor people are. The darker it is, that's where they're congregated. This, I think, is worth dwelling on just for a second. This is a map of the groundwater tables, and the darker blue it is, the closer to the surface the water is. And what this illustrates is that actually we have a huge potential impact for increasing food production and food security and taking rural smallholders out of poverty, in all these places. The darker the green, the greater the potential. What it means is there are about 100 million smallholder families in sub-Saharan Africa who live in places where the groundwater table is within 10, 20, 30, 40 feet of where they're standing. And we need to make a much better and much more efficient use of that entirely renewable resource, because notwithstanding climate change and rainwater patterns sort of all over the place, it will rain sooner or later, and that's where it gathers. So we are hoping that in the fullness of time, quicker rather than slower, we'll get to roughly 20 million of these people. There's still a long way to go. It is time to scale that. Lastly, very quickly, if people don't want to treadle our human-powered pumps, which are also limited by their physics, they can only get down 20, 25 feet below ground. We're developing manually operated deep well pumps. We're developing solar pumps that do a similar job, and one or two other agricultural water management technologies, which we believe are very important to really fulfill this potential in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nick Moon, KickStart International. Our final lightning round speaker is Hilda Moraa, Research Fellow and Entrepreneur of iHub. She's going to visit with us about the role of ICT Hubs as platforms for solving food security problems in sub-Saharan Africa. Please welcome Hilda Moraa.
Hi, everyone. Greetings from Kenya. As we all know, the ICT hubs, these are information communication technology hubs, have been a key opportunity in Africa, and we are getting so many of them coming up in Kenya and across Africa. Currently, we have more than 100 innovation spaces across Africa, and these innovation spaces include pre-incubators, co-working spaces, virtual spaces, university-based hubs, accelerator programs, and also investment hubs, which are actually coming up in Africa after every 2 weeks. It has been shown by research studies that after every 2 weeks, there is a new hub coming up in Africa to then promote innovation and actually give birth to innovations that are led by youth entrepreneurs who are coming up with these innovations in the food security area and many other sectors, basically to improve the livelihoods of their users. Just to take you back in Kenya, where I'm coming from, at the iHub, where we have most of these innovation spaces, they're actually copying the model of the iHub, basically, which has brought youth entrepreneurs in a room to sit down, brainstorm on ideas, and give birth to innovations that are actually solving real problems on the ground. And iHub has grown, and now it's been 4 years since its existence. And we are having different initiatives coming out of the iHub, like the iHub Research, which actually facilitates the research and validating most of these innovations that are actually being developed in the space. We have the iHub UX, which is basically bringing the aspect of understanding the user's needs on the ground before going further to develop these applications. We also have the iHub Consulting that actually brings a group of experts to solve these problems and actually provide expertise in the market and promote these innovations at the marketplace. And not forgetting the MLab, which is an incubation space that actually has facilitated and stimulated the growth of mobile applications in the use of developing these innovations with low-tech innovations. We should not forget that these ICT hubs cannot work alone in solving some of these problems. And again, I'm not going to talk about those problems because we have clearly stated and discussed them at length, since we came here. And again, the biggest question is about, are these hubs enough to solve the problem of food security by just bringing these entrepreneurs to sit down and develop these innovations? The answer is no. They need to work with other stakeholders. They need to bring other people on the table who have different expertise, who have different roles to play in ensuring that these problems are solved in a sustainable manner. And again, not forgetting the government has a big role to play, the partners and the corporate institutions as well, not forgetting research institutions, not forgetting the entrepreneurs themselves bringing the ideas on the table, and again, monitoring and evaluation of these applications will become very important. Again, just to list and talk about some of the applications that have come out in Africa, and this is probably not even a quarter of the applications that are being developed. And we can see some of the logos of the applications that have been developed. Tele that has actually provided visibility and supply chain solutions in the food security. We have iCow that has helped to track farmers by calendar and basically giving them a calendar whereby they can be able to track the gestation period and basically the progress of their cows. We have mFarm that's actually facilitating the market prices on the ground of the farmers. Kilimo Salama, which is a Swahili word that means, safe farming, that provides information on loans and actually credit to the farmers. M-Pesa, which probably most of us know about by Safaricom, one of the mobile operators leading in Kenya, that has facilitated M-Pesa, which is a mobile payment platform that the farmers are actually using to receive and make payments. We also have initiatives such as the McGill that are actually promoting best practices and helping the farmers to understand, guidelines to actually ensure that they become sustainable. To wind up and wrap up is to say that some of these applications, actually part of the biggest problems they're facing is sustainability and scalability. We're having a lot of these innovations coming out of the ICT Hub places, but the question has been, are they scalable? Are the farmers actually using these applications to do transactions and actually ensure that they are actually getting the right information from them? And we're seeing most of them are actually just being developed, but nothing is happening after that. And part of the problem goes back to helping these ICT hubs to solve the problem of sustainability, because most of them across Africa are still in very early stages. They don't have sustainability models. They are not scalable. They don't know exactly what their mandate is. And we need to go past the hype. We need to get these ICT hubs scalable and sustainable to then be able to ensure that these innovations coming out of those places remain scalable at the end of the day. And I believe some of the key things that we need to go back on the table and solve are sustainability issues, both from the side of these innovations and also from the side of the ICT hubs. We also need to look at monitoring and evaluation. Are we measuring the success and the impact of these applications, and how are we actually doing it on the ground? And again, the journey is not going to end here. Technology is not going to solve all the problems of the farmers. So we have to see how to integrate other aspects and best practices, including understanding the local problems of the farmers and basically contextualizing most of these applications to make sense to the farmer. Another key thing that we need to ensure is basically the relevance of these applications. If you actually go to most of these ICT hubs, you will hear so many startups have actually come out of it solving food security problems, but the problem has been the relevance of those applications. Are we just building applications for the sake of it and competing with the hype? I think we are past the hype, and we need to sit down and actually solve applications that are going to solve real problems on the ground. And just to wind up, I don't know whether you've heard about the Kenya Climate Innovation Center in Kenya, which is actually an initiative by the World Bank, InfoDef, that has actually come up to stimulate and boost most of these applications in the food security sector. And again, one of the beautiful things they have done is basically to promote these green technologies by taking them through a process of research and giving them seed funding, and also helping them to scale these applications in the market, and actually helping the farmers to bring feedback that they can actually reiterate and make sure that they're building applications that actually can be scaled not only in Kenya, but also across Africa. And I think it's a very beautiful initiative that needs to be replicated not only just in East Africa and also Africa, but as a global initiative. And just to wrap up, is to say that technology in Africa is one of the biggest opportunities that we have, and mobile technology penetration is definitely something that we remain to continue increasing across Africa. And we need to take that as an excellent opportunity and platform to ensure that we are maximizing and using it to solve some of these food security problems. And I think we are in the right place today, and we need to start thinking about how can technology be used to solve these problems and ensure that we are building sustainable initiatives. Thank you.